So in today's video, we're going to talk about what's the best type of firewood. Is it oak, maple, hickory? Well, let's find out. Come here. You joy. You joy. Little good girl. So there's a lot of different things to consider with what's going to be the best type of firewood. How quickly does it season? How hard is it to process? How many BTUs is there per cord? There's a lot of different things that you can consider, but today's video is going to be even simpler than that, and I'm going to give you a more generalized statement that you can follow. So a little later in the video, I will get into the actual species more and tell you what species I think is best. But the purpose and the title of this video is what is the best firewood? And the general idea is the best firewood is one that is seasoned and readily accessible to you. So that could be a variety of woods. That could be oak, hickory, maple, locust, hedge. That could be pine. That could be fir. That could be a variety of softwoods. So you could have the best wood in the world, but it might be 1,000 miles away from you. So it really doesn't do you any good. In fact, let me tell you a little story. All right, so I'm going to tell you a story. So I'm on a forum called Firewood Hoarders Club. I've said it. If you hear some paws above, it's not Santa paws, it's willow paws. So before we get into the story, let me give you a little background information so the whole thing makes more sense. So I'm on an online forum called Firewood Hoarders Club. I've mentioned it in other videos. It's a place where anyone can go, they can gather. There's a whole collection of people from all over the world, all different ages, all different experience levels. And the one thing we have in common is we love burning firewood. We talk about it. There's some people on there that are really sharp with lots of experience. And ultimately, it's a great place to learn about firewood. I've been on this forum for a number of years now. I don't know exactly how many, somewhere around maybe 4 or 5 years, I would say at this point. But there was a gentleman actually fairly nearby to me in Connecticut, and he kept talking about black locust. He would keep finding black locust. So I, looked into it, and it was a great firewood. A lot of people raved about it, said it was the best firewood ever. They won't even touch oak. So I'm like, I gotta try this black locust. So I started looking around in my area, and there really wasn't any nearby me. The closest that I could find any was about an hour away in different directions. So I did end up scoring some. I cut some up. A guy had some trees that had fallen he wanted to cut up. So I actually met another member of the forum at one of the sites, and we cut up some of the black locust and divided it between us. But ultimately, the amount of work it took to drive an hour to get the wood and then trailer it back to my house, it just didn't make sense time-wise, and it wasn't efficient. So although black locust might be, better than certain other woods as far as drying, BTUs, etc., it's not readily accessible to me, which is what I mean. If I have to drive an hour, that's not readily accessible. I could probably get more black locust if I was willing to spend more time, but I have other commitments. I have a job, I do YouTube, I have a family. I can't spend all my free time driving hours and hours and hours getting firewood because, ultimately I'm only getting, half a cord at a time. That's about the most my truck will pull that I'd want to pull. My truck will pull 6,800 pounds, but I don't think I'd want to pull that regularly with a little Nissan Frontier. So, 1/2 to 5/8 of a cord maybe at a time, which some people might be saying, oh, that'll last you all year. Well, no, it won't. Not if you're burning with exclusively wood. I think too many people burn wood as more of an afterthought to help offset the temperatures in the house a little bit, but the main heating source is something else. If you're heating exclusively with wood and you're only burning 1/2 a cord of wood, then please tell me your secret, because I have a hard time believing you don't have some other source of heat on, whether it be oil, electric, propane, natural gas, geothermal. There's something else going on to help heat your house. I just can't see heating a house with 1/2 a cord of firewood unless your house is 500 square feet and your walls are 12 inches of insulation or something like that. So for anyone wondering, this miner's cart is actually full of bark right now, which I do burn. I'll throw this bark in a little at a time, maybe 2 or 3 pieces in with a load, just to get rid of it so I don't have to carry it out of the cellar. It still burns, it's still wood fibers, and ultimately it doesn't make any sense to waste it. But my other point was All wood needs to be seasoned. That's the best firewood. It doesn't really matter species. Too many people get hung up on it has to be oak, it has to be maple, it has to be locust, it has to be hedge, it has to be this, it has to be that. Your firewood doesn't have to be any specific species. But the one thing that it does have to be, regardless of the species, is seasoned. Traditionally, that means below 20% moisture content. Yes, unseasoned wood will burn, but not well. You'll have problems, you'll have low temperature fires, you'll create a lot of creosote in your chimney, you have a lot of smoldering, a lot of smoke. You're not going to get the same amount of heat per cord. So although you can burn higher moisture content wood, it's not going to burn nearly as well, and I do not recommend it, and ultimately I think you're going to have problems doing so. So let me give you guys a quick scenario and you tell me what you would do. You have 18% moisture content lodgepole pine. You have 35% moisture content red oak. You have to burn it within the next couple weeks in your wood stove. Which one would you choose? I would choose the lodgepole pine all day long. People are going to say pine's low, pine doesn't last in the firebox. 35% moisture content red oak is not going to do well. I don't care what kind of firebox you have or what kind of wood stove you have. And a lot of people don't realize different types of pine have different levels of BTUs. Lodgepole pine has around 21 million BTUs per cord, which isn't much different than red oak, which is around 22 to 23 million BTUs per cord. There are pines that are lower. Red pines are more like 17, 18 million BTUs per cord. White pine is more like 14, 15 million BTUs per cord. But some of the pines are pretty up there, and they're in the 20 million mark of BTUs per cord. So they're not far behind your ashes, your red oaks, some of your soft maples. They're right there. So I would choose that lodgepole pine over the red oak any day of the week because of the moisture content. If they were fresh for fresh, they were both 18% moisture content, it wouldn't be a question. I would choose the red oak. But the point of the video is moisture content and being readily accessible are the most important factors and ultimately are the best firewoods. But with that said, I promised I would talk about what my favorite personal firewood is, so let's do that. So I said I would mention my personal favorite firewood. We're going to do that right now. Anyone know what this is? I'm sure most of you probably do. It's red oak. I've made videos that I think personally, my personal opinion, take it for what it's worth, I think red oak is the king of firewood for a number of different reasons. How readily accessible it is to a wide portion of the United States, how easy it is to process, it grows straight, grows big, it's easy to split, splits into nice square straight pieces so it's easier to stack and put in your wood stove. I think it burns great, has good coaling properties, it lasts a long time, it has decent BTUs. So the one downside though to red oak is it does take forever to season. Typically that takes up to 3 years, and that's going to vary depending on where you stack it. If you have it in a nice open area, maybe an open field with good sun and good wind, in a flat area, there's not a lot of trees around, it could season in 1 to 2 years. But if you have it under a tarp or maybe, under a tree canopy and you have a wetter area, you get a lot of rainfalls, it could take 3 years, maybe 4 years. Some people say white oak takes 4 years. A lot of people will tell you red oak takes around 3 years. So I would figure 2 to 3 full years to season your red oak. So I would like to know, what's your favorite firewood? Black locust, honey locust, Osage orange or hedge, mulberry, red oak, white oak, hickories. Tell me what is your personal favorite firewood and why. Leave it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.